My final game this afternoon is the Duke Blue Devils will make their first appearance, the top seeds. They'll be taking on North Carolina State. And yesterday, Duke got a chance to watch a little TV, and what they saw was how the brackets advanced as North Carolina State beat Georgia Tech by 14. It was Carolina in the nightcap having to rally from Clemson using a zone defense in the second half to beat the Clemson Tigers. Very determined effort there. They make the semifinal in the other bracket. Also, Virginia pulls the upset of the night over Wake Forest, the number 3 seed, 70-66. Now that brings up today's game, State and Duke. That's coming away at 1:30, and the following game in the opposite bracket, Virginia and North Carolina. It was kind of a night of the living zone. His zone defenses played a big role in what the two night games were, but NC State won handily over Georgia Tech early on. Wolfpack knew they wanted to spread this one around offensively. Brian Fagan spotting up, hitting 4 of his 9 jumpers. He finished with 10. Kenny Anderson would get 15 and 8 assists. This slashing move to the basket, and Georgia Tech is down 3 at the break. Wolfpack shooting cooks up in the second half. Over the final 20 minutes, they score 45 points and shoot 57%. Kevin Thompson, typical of those numbers, hitting 6 of 11 for 15 points. He also pulled 9 boards. Monroe spots for the tray. He finished with 24, and the Wolfpack gets a 14-point win.
We had great team defense in stopping Anderson, and you know, our big guys did a great job on the board, so it was just a team effort.
It was all going right for Clemson in the first half as the Tigers hit 10 of their first 14 shots. Watch Ricky Jones, who canned 7 of 9 for a 16-point outing. And an ACC tournament wouldn't be complete without Double D getting double digits. Dale Davis with 15 points and 11 boards. Tigers go up by 12, but the Tar Heels cut it right back down to 1 until the final minute of the first half when Davis misses. Donnell Bruce gets the board and the bucket. Cliff Ellis and his Tigers have a 6-point lead at the break. The Tar Heels go to a zone defense in the second half. They get some shots from Hubert Davis and a right-handed hook from Pete Chilcutt. Clemson held to 17 second-half points as the Tar Heels get their 23rd win.
You have to give Clemson all the credit in the world because I don't think a lot of the fans gave them credit coming to the game. I know we respected what they're going to do. We knew they were going to slow it down. And they came in there and they had their game plan and it worked for them and it took us out of ours.
We didn't want to panic. We've been down at half before. And when we just wanted to come out strong defensively. We wanted to get a great shot every time down the court. And I think we did that most of the time.
A seesaw game in the first half turned in Virginia's favor when Wake Forest freshman Rodney Rogers picked up his 4th foul early in the second half. But another freshman, Randolph Childress, stepped up and hit the 3-pointer as Wake took a brief lead. Perhaps the turning point of the game came when Virginia's junior, Bryant Stiff, came through with an all-ACC play. Sticks the jumper on one end, goes to the defensive side, gets the steal, feeds John Crotty off the break, and suddenly Virginia's up by 3. It was a lead the Wahoos would never give back as they went up by 7. But Rodney Rogers comes back into the game late. He gets 5 points in 2 trips down the floor. Now Wake is within 3. But the Demon Deacons defense overplays as Crotty finds the opening on the baseline, waltzes down, and ices the game. Wake upset in the quarterfinals as Virginia goes on to the semifinals to meet Carolina.
All along, what we've said is stick together, keep working, keep believing in ourselves, and sooner or later, good things will happen.
Coca-Cola presents the ACC Play of the Week. Coca-Cola Classic. Can't beat the real thing. Second half, Carolina down to Clemson. King Rice shows his senior leadership, slashing through the lane, gets the foul, and converts a 3-point play. It was a lead that was insurmountable for Clemson as Rice finished with 13 points. Big night for a lot of those seniors as the ACC Sports Center in Charlotte Coliseum. All ACC team, here's your starting 5. We'll be back to talk about our Player of the Week after this.
The real thing, talking about the real thing. It's a hero, a friend, a smile you want to see forever. It's the rock and it's the soul. It's a feeling to keep. It's close to your heart, like you in your
the individual needs of your face. Sensor blades are mounted on responsive springs to continuously sense and individually adjust to your face. The closest, safest, most comfortable Gillette sensor, together with the richness of foamy shave cream for the best shave a man can get. Gillette, the best a man can get.
Nothing beats a bud with a friend. Nothing beats what we've got here. Nothing beats clean, crisp, cold. Nothing beats the king of beers. Yeah, nothing beats a bud. Yeah, nothing beats a bud. Nothing beats a Budweiser. Nothing beats a Bud.
NC State needed a shooting lift in the second half against Georgia Tech, so they turned to the man they call Ice. Rodney Monroe contributed 24 points on 8 of 17 shooting, along with 4 assists and only 1 turnover in 39 minutes of play. Monroe swished the three-pointer that clinched the game as the Wolfpack advanced to the semifinals. Rodney Monroe, the Budweiser Player of the Week. And welcome to the living room of the Charlotte Coliseum in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm Paul Cameron again, along with Barry Jacobs. And, you know, Barry, we talked at the top of this year about the point guards and what kind of league this was going to be. It is, again, the talk here at the tournament. The point guards, they have really controlled, especially in last night's ball game when you see what John Crotty did.
That's right, Paul, along with these gaudy ties.
Oh, wait a minute now. A gaudy tie? Now, this is a pair of drapes I had cut down last week. I got 500 of these suckers, so I got to wear them.
I stand corrected. Along with those, and talk about whether this tournament is as good as it used to be. Point guards are all the rage in the ACC these days. Of course, there's a good reason for that. Without a doubt, this is one of the best groups ever in ACC history. One of the things that they're really good at is scoring. We had Kenny Anderson, who's second in the league in scoring, and today we're going to see 2 of the better scorers, John Crotty of Virginia and Chris Corchiani of NC State, both second on their teams in point production.
Certainly scoring, but the fundamentals are what I'm always impressed by these guys.
Right. I think the 3 things you look for first and foremost are capacity to play tough defense, ability to bring the ball up court against pressure, and leadership. And leadership being translated as doing what your coach wants you to do and understanding your teammates as people and players.
There really is a great feeling between the coaches and their point guards in this league.
Right, and of course it's no coincidence that 7 of the head coaches in the league were guards in college, most of them point guards. Cliff Ellis of Clemson, the only exception, he didn't play in college.
What about the heredity factor? I know there's some good genes out there floating around.
Right, well, Corchiani and Bobby Hurley of Duke are both the sons of high school coaches. Jeff Jones of Virginia and Dean Smith of North Carolina are the sons of high school coaches. And John Crotty's father played guard in college.
All right, Barry, final thoughts on point guards before we head to the NCAAs?
Well, I think we have a terrific group this year, and I think we'll have almost as good a group next year. They'll be younger, but they'll be just as talented.
Barry Jacobs, thanks so much. We've heard from the expert. Now let's turn our attention, this talk about point guards, to some of the guards, some of the players, and some of the coaches in this league. Let's hear what they have to say.
Kenny Anderson is a point guard. I don't think there's any doubt because he gives you all dimensions. You just name it, he can do it.
If you look to maybe the toughest guard in the league, you would probably say John Crotty.
John and Kenny, you know, they are more of scoring point guards, and Chris Corchiani and King Rice and Derek McQueen, they're more the type who distribute the ball more.
I think Bob Hurley and Chris Corchiani, so they really stay after you.
It's a pretty tough question to answer because I think there's a lot of good guards in the ACC.
Crotty, Corchiani, Hurley, McQueen, and Childress.
I think all of the guards are good. Every guard within this conference fit into their program. I think Kenny Anderson is a scoring type point guard that's really needed within Georgia Tech's offense.
You know, whenever you play someone like Kenny Anderson, it makes you play that much harder. You know, because he is the best, and you know, you just try to. You know, you try to beat him if you can. It doesn't happen that often, but, you know, he just brings out the best in everyone.
I think this tournament brings out the best in everyone, and we're looking forward to seeing the point guards and everyone play in today's semifinals. The ACC Sports Center from Charlotte will continue with All in the Family in a minute. Continues at the Charlotte Coliseum on this semifinal Saturday. Working with me now, Chris Clackham, the hardest working guy here at the show. He's been a blur. He's been running from here to there and come up with a nice story about all in the family.
Well, let me tell you something, Paul. You could probably put together a pretty good all-star, big-name team from the Atlantic Coast Conference because of some of the famous names that you have in the ACC. We found several of them here, and what our story is all about is finding out how they have to deal with the pressure. And what we found out is they do it in their own way of dealing with the pressure of having a famous mom or dad. As if the pressures of an ACC tournament game were not enough, consider having to live with one of the great names in basketball, Mike Havlicek.
People expect you to be far and away the best, and I was a late grower, and it was something that I had a hard time dealing with when I was younger, but as I grew older, I used it as a motivator, and something I really enjoy. That's why I play it.
Virginia's Chris Havlicek attacks it head-on. The son of basketball great John Havlicek had another sport in mind growing up in Boston.
I started out playing hockey, and when I was about 5 years old, and I gradually made the adjustment to basketball, and I've loved it ever since. I started playing, I guess, when I was 8, and then about my freshman year in high school, I started to get serious about it.
Georgia Tech's John Barry comes from a family already rich in basketball history. Not only is he the son of NBA Hall of Famer Rick Barry, but the brother of Scooter Barry, who played with the national championship Kansas team.
Was there any way John Barry was going to grow up and not play basketball in the Barry family?
It's pretty tough. I mean, we're always around it, and we actually all picked it up. Just like we all liked it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I know that.
Famous father Rick warned his children early on of the pressures of fame.
It's not an easy task, however, to have that albatross hanging around your neck and that giant shadow cast on you. I tried to warn the boys about it when they were old enough to understand, and I remember very vividly that John, of all the boys, is the one that said, "That's okay, Dad, I'm not worried about it because I'm going to be better than you were." So John never was really one lacking in confidence.
Then there's Duke's Grant Hill, his father Calvin Hill, whose football exploits at Yale led to a stellar professional career in the NFL, most notably with the Dallas Cowboys. Grant dodged a little of the pressure by picking a sport other than what made his dad famous.
If I played football, then there'd always be, that comparison between us, and I think if I did play football, my dad would put a lot more pressure on me. He'd expect me to be more like him on the football field. So I'm glad I chose this route.
A couple of other famous parents in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Diane Fox, a high jump winner from the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. She is the mother of North Carolina's Rick Fox. And from Duke University, that's Thomas Hill Sr. there. He's at Oklahoma State now. He competed in the 1972 Munich Olympics. Talk about pressure, though. How about being one of the wives of the coaches of the Atlantic Coast Conference? They each have their own way of dealing with it, too. For example, take Barbara Robinson, Les Robinson's wife of the NC State. She deals with the pressure by just getting involved in the game herself. So much so that her children call her coach.
I do. I obviously say things about, well, why did you take him out? He was just so hot, and he was doing great.
She goes to all the games. Our children, all college age, they call her coach, matter of fact. That's a private joke within the family because she's gotten so involved. She was involved at the Citadel and at East Tennessee State and really loves basketball, and she's gotten to where she does a little coaching, and she does some officiating as well.
A good coach can go beyond the X's and O's and predict with a certain amount of accuracy just what their wife will say about them. Case in point, Wake Forest coach Dave Odom and wife Lynn.
She would probably tell you that I'm too impatient. I want things yesterday that cannot be gotten until tomorrow. And have a tendency to let my temper get the best of me on occasion.
Probably his biggest fault is he is impatient. And probably the two people that have suffered the most because of that are his sons. But he's a perfectionist, and he really is impatient. That's true.
When I'm at the game, my mind is on the game, and then afterwards when I go home, then I start thinking about the family again.
I don't know anything unless I read it in the paper or have a chance to listen to the coach's show or hear it on the radio. And that's good and it's bad. I'd like to be a little more involved, but on the other hand, I appreciate him not getting me too involved.
The life of a coach's wife often falls victim to the ups and downs of a season. Just ask Carolyn Ellis, wife of Clemson coach Cliff Ellis.
It's awful to go from being #1 and enjoying all of that glory that is associated with winning basketball games, and then going through the frustration of losing the close games. We've lost so many close games, and to know that the potential is there.
She's just an extremely intelligent, open-minded person that is caring, loving, and very, very unselfish. She probably deserves a better life than being the wife of a basketball coach.
It's like this. We're coming right back with our basic basketball. Show you how the players and coaches get ready for a tournament. Stay tuned.
Born of the finest natural ingredients, then brewed and aged with extra care for that clean, crisp, cold taste. The taste only Budweiser can deliver. The king of beers.
20 years ago, if you came to the ACC tournament, the pressure back then was just unbelievable, like a vice, constantly turning down on you. You knew it was do or die. You had to really put out your best effort. Well, these days, it's changed. The pressure is different, but the preparation for the tournament is about the same as we talk to players and coaches in the league about this year's edition. Coca-Cola presents ACC Basic Basketball. Coca-Cola Classic. Can't beat the real thing.
The best thing to do to prepare for a tournament, postseason tournament, is play back-to-back games. Because that's the only real different thing in a conference tournament as opposed to the regular season.
I feel that, tournament time, this is time that everybody is very intense. I think this is all or nothing now. One game, you lose and you're out. So I think it'll be a lot of emotion played. Therefore, you really have to gear up, execute almost to perfection. And I think that would be a key advantage to you.
As far as the legs, I don't really worry about that. I don't think you can save anything, hold anything back. Certainly not a team like Wake Forest. We've got to play all out every game and then worry about the next game if it comes. And for instance, this week, my staff kept saying cut back, and we got to 2 hours every day. So it really didn't bother me, and I don't think it bothers our team. I think it's all a matter of what you get used to.
You don't want to make it a pressure event. You want to make it fun and tell them to play hard. If you start putting a list of things of why they should do something well, and you miss out on the fact you do well because you want to play well.
You can't save anything on the court, because if you save anything and you try to hold something back for the next game, then you just might as well going home. I think you have to go out and get 100% game by game. You just have to survive the first game and advance to the second game, and that's how you look at it. Take one game at a time and survive and advance.
I think the main thing, after the first one, if you get the first one, I think a lot of that has to do with emotions. You're playing off emotions, and that'll basically get you through the other two games.
Well, just attack it like it's your last game, because it might be my last ACC game, and at this point in time, I think the team is, out of the last 10 games, I think we went 3-7. So, the team is slumping. We need to lift ourselves up before the NCAA tournament. For one, to make sure that we get there, and then to play well in the tournament. I think, I'm trying to attack this one as possibly my last game, and I just have to go out and play as hard as possible.
Well, I thought emotion had a lot to do with Clemson's first appearance yesterday, the near upset of North Carolina, and for Virginia as well, who really turned it around. We'll see what that emotion does to a team that was top ranked coming in, top seeded. The Duke Blue Devils had a day off to watch the first round of the quarterfinals. Our game announcers with that one coming up, Tim Brandt and Dan Bonner.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. Along with Dan, the teams continue to warm up behind us, NC State and Duke. Now, these two teams split, Dan, during the regular season. Everybody's talked about the guards here in the pregame show. How about the big guys? Leitner will get his. How about Gugliotta for NC State?
Tim, I think it's time to give some equal time to the big guys. We've been talking all about these little guys, and I've had enough of it, quite frankly. The Duke Blue Devils, the reason they can be effective in their half-court offense is because they do have Christian Laettner, and he's one of the most versatile players in the ACC, if not in the country. For North Carolina State, your point about Gugliotta is a good one. At 6'9", he's really a perimeter player, runs the court very well, an excellent three-point shooter. The first time these two teams played, he had 14 points in a Wolfpack win. Last time he only had 5, and the Wolfpack was not very successful. They lost at Duke.
How about a guy like Thompson, who stepped to the plate yesterday for NC State, played extremely well, a little bit maybe above his normal level. Can he come back and do that the second straight day?
Oh, I think that there's no question that he can, because you've got to spend so much time concentrating on a Corciani or a Monroe, and even though they're little guys, you have to concentrate on them from time to time. And Gugliotta, that really creates some opportunities for Thompson and for Fagans, and I think both of those young men are capable of having big games. And maybe if Duke is going to lose to North Carolina State, if the Wolfpack's going to get the victory, those guys have to have big games.
All right, this should be fun. Duke 25-6, the top seed against the number 4 seed, 19-9 NC State. We'll be back as Sports Center continues right after this. Stay with us.
CC Sports Center has been brought to you by Budweiser, U.S. Air, and by Coca-Cola, an official NCAA sponsor. Coca-Cola Classic. Can't beat the real thing.
Well, in the last 30 minutes, the Charlotte Coliseum crowd, for the most part, has begun filling up this place on a pretty day here in Charlotte, North Carolina, to watch the semifinals. North Carolina State and Duke coming up next. The second game in the opposite bracket, it's Virginia and North Carolina, the second seed. We'll be with you tomorrow before the championship game on our Championship Sunday show, special 1 hour. It starts at 1:30, and the championship game, of course, at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. I'm Paul Cameron on the ACC Sports Center. Be back with you at halftime. Stay tuned for the ACC tournament.
Of Florida. Senior Danny Ferry shocked Miami with his record-breaking performance. What record did he break? The answer after this. Set the ACC record for most points scored in one game. He buried 58 points and surpassed NC State great David Thompson's record by 1 point. ACC Flashback, sponsored by Walker Auto Stores, serving you and your mechanic AC Delco products.
Presentation of Raycom Sports and Entertainment and JP Sports.
The Wolfpack faithful know this afternoon the burden of success for NC State falls squarely on the shoulders of the Wolfpack backcourt, led by All-American Rodney Monroe. Monroe continues to be complemented by the penetrating style and accurate shooting of Chris Corciani. Corciani, a senior, is matched today against sophomore Bobby Hurley. And it is that time-tested backcourt which has Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski concerned.
Corciani and Monroe, they can go a long way, because they can play any type of tempo. And Corciani and Monroe have played a lot of these games, so their experience scares me.
The Blue Devils continue to be anchored by 6'11" Christian Laettner in the low post. Duke will rely heavily on him this afternoon. But while Laettner's the key, Thomas Hill has been a catalyst, and he could be the man to elevate Duke this afternoon. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. The ACC tournament semifinals are about to begin.
Raycom Sports and Entertainment and JP Sports present the best in college basketball, the Atlantic Coast Conference. Today's game is brought to you by Diet Pepsi, U.S. Air, Nationwide Insurance, Lowe's, Ford, Natural Light, and by NCNB.
As expected, the Charlotte Coliseum is sold out for today's first semifinal game between the Wolfpack of NC State and the top-seeded Blue Devils of Duke. Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Brandt along with Dan Bonner. You know that NC State played yesterday. All 5 players got a pretty good workout. Duke comes in with a bye, so they did not play. Does that hurt, or does it help them?
Oh, the bye can do nothing but help, Tim. Come on, to win the championship, if you have the bye, you only got to win 2 games. Everybody else has to do 3. You can see right here, 6 of 9 times the team with the bye has won the championship. 8 of 9 times they've won this particular basketball game. So I think what you have is you've got a very, very interesting matchup. 2 teams that really get after one another.
So Duke comes in well rested and with the longer bench. That's going to be a factor. Right now, let's take you across the court. Here is Paul Cameron. Paul, take it away.
Thanks so much, Tim. And hi, everybody. Paul Cameron here, your tournament host. And I think it's of interest that we've got 2 first-year head coaches here in the ACC semifinals. Les Robinson of North Carolina State. His Wolfpack a winner over Georgia Tech yesterday. And Les, by the way, is no stranger to winning conference games. When he was in the Southern Conference, he won his last 6 straight games in that tournament, as now he's added a 7th, so 7 in a row in conference games. The Pack, of course, taking on Duke this afternoon. That's our first game. And the other first-year head coach, Jeff Jones of Virginia, who is now, with 21 wins in his season, become the first head coach, first-year head coach, to win that many games ever in league history. He surpasses Bress Maravich from a few years back. So, our first game, NC State and Duke. It is coming your way right here, as I'll be back at halftime and try to keep you informed in some of the other conference tournaments going on around the country this big Saturday afternoon. March Madness continues with the Charlotte Coliseum. Duke fans are nuts, so are the State fans. We're looking for a big afternoon. You stay with us, everybody. Tim and Dad are coming up next.
Excuse me, sir. When you want fast pain relief, which headache powder do you prefer? A, B, or C?
BC.
But you can only take 1 headache powder.
I did.
The Coliseum, we're getting ready for Duke and NC State, the semifinal. Tim Brand along with Dan Bonner. And let's take time now to look at the 4 keys of the game. For NC State, the transition game, all important. And stamina, of course, coming off yesterday's win. Duke comes in. They've got to defend the perimeter and rebounding. Explain those, Dan.
Tim, when you're talking about NC State and the transition game, one guy that people tend to forget is this fellow right here, Tom Gugliotta. Runs the court very well. When North Carolina State gets it going, running up and down, one of his best things is he runs up the court, gets behind that three-point line and drills it. You've got to find him on the fast break. Obviously, Duke did not do a good job the first time, but a much better job the second time. Stamina, of course, is a key factor. They had 5 guys play at least 38 minutes yesterday. You never know how that's going to have an effect. For the Duke Blue Devils, not only do they have to defend that 3, but they've got to rebound the basketball very well. You figure you're going to get some good rebounding from Christian Laettner, but these 2 guys right here, Grant Hill and Brian Davis, can be very significant factors on the board. North Carolina State is a sneaky rebounding team. You figure they're not going to rebound it very well, but they can get it, and so Hill and Davis and everybody else besides Laettner are really going to have to crash the boards.
Now, it's no question, I guess, about the fact that NC State's bench does not go very deep. For Duke on the other side, they've had 10 different starting lineups this year.
They have, but you can only have 5 guys in the game at one time, Tim. You only got 1 basketball, so sometimes I think that bench strength is overrated, and it may be even overrated in a tournament like this. The State guys have played all year without any help from the bench, and so I think at least they're prepared for it.
Time now for the Lowe's starting lineups. And for that, we'll take you across the court to our public address announcer. Here is John Edwards. John, you're on.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the city of Charlotte, welcome to the Charlotte Coliseum and the semifinals of the 38th Annual Atlantic Coast Conference Basketball Tournament. Here are the starting lineups. First, for the Wolfpack of North Carolina State. Starting at 1 forward, a 6'9" junior from Huntington Station, New York, number 24, Tom Gugliotta. At the other forward, a 6'6" sophomore from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, number 34, Brian Biggins. At the center position, a 6'9" sophomore from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, number 42, Kevin Thompson. At one guard, a 6'1" senior from Miami, Florida, number 13, Chris Corciani. And the other guard, a 6'3" senior from Hagerstown, Maryland, number 21, Rodney Monroe. And the head coach of the Wolfpack is Les Robinson. Now the starters for the Blue Devils of Duke University. Starting at 1 forward, a 6'6" junior from Capitol Heights, Maryland, number 23, Brian Davis. At the other forward, a 6'7" freshman from Western Virginia, number 33, Grant Hill. At the center position, a 6'11" junior from Angola, New York, number 32, Christian Laettner. a 6'4" sophomore from Lancaster, Texas, number 12, Thomas Hill. And the other guard, a 6' sophomore from Jersey City, New Jersey, number 11, Bobby Hurley. And the head coach of the Blue Devils is Mike Krzyzewski.
The Duke Blue Devils come in at 25-6. Top seed, NC State, 19-9, the number 4 seed. Now, these two clubs split their regular season games. The Pack beat Duke 95-89 in Raleigh. And Duke won the rematch in Durham 72-65. We'll have the opening tip right after this word from our good friends at Natural Light. Welcome back to the Charlotte Coliseum for the semifinals this afternoon. We're just about set. Duke at NC State. This is what they did during the regular season.
Two very different basketball games. In the first game, Corchiani running wild, Monroe with 35. In the second game, Duke very physical against Corchiani, Monroe limited to 18. First time out, the Wolfpack out-rebounds the Blue Devils. Second time, the Blue Devils turn it around.
Opening tip controlled by the Blue Devils. This is Davis over to Hurley. Man-to-man defense by NC State to start off.
Wolfpack will show you some zone, but basically man-to-man defense is the defense, and this is where Duke can be very effective in the half-court offense with Leitner inside.
Leitner bangs it in, and it's 2-0 Duke.
You'd like to cut off that inside if you're the Duke Blue Devils and try to make, or excuse me, if you're North Carolina State and try to make Duke shoot from the perimeter.
Both teams go man-to-man. They like motion attacks.
Thomas Hill matched up against Gugliotta.
This is Corchiani on Hurley. Duke doing a good job right now cutting off the passing lanes.
We're 25 seconds into the shot clock. North Carolina State still pretty far from the basket. They penetrate that time, but the Duke defense knocks it away.
Last touch by Hill. It'll be Wolfpack basketball.
Mike Krzyzewski's Duke teams, of course, known for their suffocating man-to-man defense, and that's what they'd like to show today.
Well, one of the keys, Dan, they do overplay that man, and that could be effective in NC State's guards. Here's Gugliotta for 3.
And that's what you have to worry about with Gugliotta. Good ball movement by North Carolina State. Hill a little too far off Gugliotta. Remember this, Gugliotta at 6'9", Hill at only 6'4". Gugliotta, if he can catch it, can shoot it over Thomas Hill anytime he wants to.
Inside pass to Grant Hill, and he banks it in.
Boy, what a nice little move up there as he moved the ball around. Waited for the defense to come down and then shot it in the basket.
Power move against Thompson puts it up 4-3. Devils. This is Monroe. Tough shot, has it taken away.
That's good help defense.
The numbers are there. 3-on-2. This is Hurley back to Davis. And Hill is fouled by Corchiani. So that'll be his first and the team's first.
Corchiani doesn't usually miss one of these. The pass goes to Hurley, and Hurley, I think, surprises Davis with the ball back. Davis usually doesn't catch it in the middle of his stomach like that. Hill's going to put it on the court. Corchiani gets the foul. Usually Corchiani will get that ball. Can't be dribbling it in there if Corchiani's around.
Hill into the paint, double pumps, it's air. And that air ball is taken back by Thompson, who's fouled and scores.
Duke really attacking effectively inside. Thomas Hill just stripped the ball from Rodney Monroe. I think Monroe was concerned that he was going to go out of bounds, and he didn't want to lose the ball that way and didn't concentrate, and Thomas Hill took it from him.
Hill is a 72% free throw shooter, sophomore from Lancaster, Texas. He converts the three-point play, and it's a 7-3. Duke lead. Another quick turnover in the bucket. Make it 9-3.
Boy, he threw that right to Christian Leitner.
Very similar to the second game they played this year in Durham, where Duke blew out to an early lead. Bagans has his block, and Davis steps on the line.
North Carolina State not reacting at all, or at least very well, to that Duke pressure after the made free throw. Duke got an easy one there. Don't often see Corchiani leave his feet at midcourt, as he just did.
Could this be the freshness of Duke and maybe the fatigue of NC State? Oh, what a shot by Monroe.
Well, if that's fatigue, Les Robinson would like to see more of it, Tim.
That's the lead to 4.
These two teams know one another so well. And I don't know that freshness and fatigue has a lot to do with it at this point in the ball game. Duke just really looks ready to play to me.
Early, tough shot over Corciani. Fagans with the rebound.
See how quickly Davis got to Gugliotta. The penetration by Monroe, kicked it to Gugliotta. Davis reacted very quickly. That time down the court, Davis picked up Gugliotta, and that may actually be a better matchup for Duke. Davis, with a little more size, can disrupt that shot.
That's turnover number 3 for the Wolfpack. This is Grant Hill with a reverse layup.
And that is something you will see all day, Tim. The last time these two teams met, whoever Gugliotta was guarding seemed to have a license to take it right to the basket.
Nice pass inside the fake. And they travel. Fagans and Gugliotta fighting over the basketball.
Of course, Les Robinson's never happy with a turnover. But his team really battling hard for the basketball. The pass inside. Fagans is trying to get himself set, gets himself trapped under the basket, and he and Gugliotta battling one another for the ball. Don't like to see that as a coach, but at least your guys are hustling.
Leitner has it slapped away.
And again, Tim, we want to mention that when Davis or Hill or whoever happens to be the man that Gugliotta is guarding gets the basketball on the perimeter, look for that man to take the ball hard to the basket to try to put some pressure on Gugliotta.
Hill slips in the backboard.
That's a great pass. You don't want to see that as a coach, just a breakdown of the man-to-man defense. And Les Robinson looks really upset with his kids at the moment.
NC State down by 8.
That's just great pressure on Corciani.
Monroe off balance. Shot is short. And Corciani gets it back.
Corciani is a great point guard, but if you could put the kind of pressure on him for an entire game as Duke is applying right now, it's going to be very difficult for him.
Thompson. Yes.
Talked about rebounding as a key, Tim. You got to keep those guys from State off the boards. Thompson, you look up some of these games, he's got 7 or 8 rebounds. Got to block him out.
15 points, 9 rebounds yesterday against Georgia Tech. Ryan Davis travels. So there's timeout on the floor. We'll take one as well with 15:56 remaining in the first half, and Duke leading 13-7.
Tim, with Duke ahead early in the basketball game, you talk a lot about defensive pressure. Well, this is what we mean. Duke is just all after Corciani. If you've got to bring it up every time in a basketball game against this type of pressure, then it's just going to be a very long afternoon. Hurley doing a very fine job against Corciani so far.
Hurley took a pretty good lick from Gugliotta on that pick.
Here we go again. This looks like our replay. There's Hurley all over him again.
This is Monroe.
Duke is going to try to deny the passing lanes where they can. Corciani catching the ball. Look how far from the basket he is as he catches the ball in the offense. That's what Duke likes to do. Push you out a couple of steps further than you want to be.
NC State shooting just 3 for 7 thus far. Duke out to a quick start, 6 for 9.
Well, that's good reaction and great double team.
Outside of Monroe, wide open for 3. His shot is short, and Leitner pulls the rebound. NC State said Hurley touched it last. He claimed innocence and won out.
NC State probably doesn't have the most objective of opinions in that particular situation. That's why you got the guys out there in the gray shirts with the ACC patches.
Little skip pass inside the Leitner. Back out to Hurley. It's for 3.
Corciani is very good at dropping down inside and helping out, and you noticed he dropped down inside that time. Leitner gets it back to Hurley for the 3. That's really going to put a crimp in Corciani's defensive game plan if Hurley's going to hit that 3-pointer.
Hurley takes an elbow from Corciani. That brings Krzyzewski off the bench, and now Hurley with the steal. Starting to look like football now.
Well, I don't know what it looks like.
I can tell you this, Brian Davis was a pretty good football player, Bladensburg High School in Maryland, but he was a wide receiver. Looks like he makes a tackle here.
Hurley reaches around Corciani, usually not going to get away with that one, reaching all the way across the body, but then Hurley pitching it ahead. Sort of got caught in the emotion of the moment, I think, Tim. Talking about emotion of the moment, it looked like Krzyzewski sat on a tack over there.
Inside Fagans, blocked down by
goes Corchiani again.
Leitner can hit these and does for 3.
And North Carolina State's got to be careful. They could get smoked very easily here.
19-7 Duke.
Boy, that's a great job by Leitner helping out on the screen. And the 5-second violation, that is tremendous defense. Not only by Hurley, but by Leitner. You've got to help your teammate. First time, Leitner just shows himself so Hurley can get by. Then the second time, Leitner steps out. The 5-second call results. That's excellent team defense.
So similar to what happened in Durham. Duke out to an early lead, then had to hold on. Right now, it's 19-7 Blue Devils. Duke out to this early lead. NC State shooting just 3 for 9. Duke 8 for 11.
We talk an awful lot about helping on screens. Watch Christian Leitner. He's going to step out, and he's just going to make himself right there to help Hurley get through. Now Hurley can't get through, so Leitner steps out and switches. That's one of 2 ways you can do it. You help your guy get through, or you switch out on the screen. Duke doing a very fine job on defense.
We want to remind you to be sure to stay tuned at halftime for the Norwegian Cruise Line Trivia Contest. You could win a great cruise for 2.
North Carolina State, of course, is not a stranger to early trouble. They came back to beat Georgia Tech after being down 15 in the second half, and they came back to beat Virginia after being down 20 in the second half. You don't like to keep digging yourself holes, however. Here's the zone for North Carolina State. Duke handling the man-to-man pretty well. Duke 8 of 11. I'd say that's handling it pretty well. It's hit 6 of their last 7 shots. Thomas Hill jumping up and down out here right in front of us, wants the ball.
This is Hurley. He'll fire for 3.
Well, I tell you what, if Duke is going to hit that perimeter jumper, particularly Hurley with the 3-pointer, they are an awfully, awfully good basketball team. They're pretty doggone good anyhow, but if he's going to do that.
Blue Devils out to a huge early lead. Gugliotta takes it inside to Fagans, and with the power move, he puts 2 more on the board for the Wolfpack.
I think if you can penetrate that Duke defense with the dribble and draw the defenders, you have the possibility to pitching it inside to someone else for an easy basket. State needs more of them. State would really like to get out and run when they get the opportunity. They haven't had much of a transition game so far.
Fagans again cuts it to 11.
When you do get out and run, Tim, you can see what kind of plays result. The defense doesn't get a chance to get set. People get better opportunities inside. Leitner sort of got hit in the stomach.
Yesterday at practice, Christian was a little bit banged up, wore a pad on his thigh. He had been run into at practice.
This time of the year, everybody's a little banged up.
When he and Buckley run into each other like happened at practice, though, that'll cause a pretty good collision. Early shot is short. Fagans with the rebound. NC State attempting to make a pretty good run here. Gugliotta falling away. 6 straight points for the Wolfpack.
Duke has missed a couple of shots, Tim, and so North Carolina State's been able to get the rebound and get the transition game in gear. It's hard to run if the other guys are going to make everything.
Credit the Pack with maintaining composure. Here's McCaffrey. He hits it for 2.
I don't think you're going to see either one of these teams lose their composure. Great senior leadership for North Carolina State. Lots of tournament experience for the guys in the white uniforms.
Nice dish to Corchiani. They'll call the offensive on Gugliotta.
We talked about penetration. Gugliotta does a nice job penetrating, but watch as he leaves his feet. Buckley just steps in and plants.
We were just talking about Buckley and his collisions. He is big, 6'10", 245.
You get a lot of confidence as a defender on the perimeter. You know you can put a lot of pressure on the ball, and if you get beat, you're going to get some help. It's a little bit of a twist, isn't it? Gugliotta penetrating and passing it to Corchiani underneath the basket.
Here's Hill.
Got that backwards.
It's for 3. Won't go. Corchiani with the rebound. Nice pass to Fagans. The bucket's good. He'll go for the line. This foul is on Buckley.
North North Carolina State runners about as well as anybody. And there's Gugliotta open just outside of your picture to the right, but Corciani finds Fagans underneath, and so he's going to get an opportunity for the old three-pointer. Nobody picks up Gugliotta. You see, he'll run to him at the last minute, and I'm sure Corciani noticed that, and he'll be looking for that later in the game.
Buckley goes out. Leitner comes back in for Duke. Fagans at the line, a 77% free throw shooter. And he sends that one down. One of the most improved free throw shooters in the country. Only shot 55% from the line as a freshman.
North Carolina State back to the man-to-man defense. I think Gugliotta has a tough matchup trying to guard Grant Hill.
Leitner loses it out of bounds.
That's a tough pass. State's hit its last 4 shots from the field. Pretty good shooting percentage early in the basketball game. I think the key for Duke, Tim, they've gotten more opportunities. A couple of offensive rebounds and the State turnovers.
Pack has cut the lead to 8. This is Corciani looking over top of Hurley. Now takes him to the paint and kicks it back out to Gugliotta.
Boy, Fagans and Kubek one after one another.
Well, for the third time, we see an NC State player step on the line. This time it's Rodney Monroe.
Well, of course, Duke's defense is designed to help push the offense out, and I guess it's the perfect design when you push them off the court.
That's 8 turnovers now for the Pack. Hurley.
Early in the basketball game, you saw those balls going in the basket for the Duke Blue Devils. They've missed the last couple.
Brian Fagans goes out. He'll get a breather. Jim Bacali comes in now for the Wolfpack.
Sort of got that left-handed slingshot kind of jumper. He has been a very valuable reserve for the Wolfpack.
24-16 Duke. Here's Bacali. Thompson was wide open, passed up the shot. Instead, Corciani in the lane.
Now, NC State scored that time, Tim, but the passes that they're being forced to make on offense are very long, long passes, and I think eventually that's going to work in favor of the Duke Blue Devils.
Good point. Kubek running one-hander is nothing but net.
Well, that's a good aggressive move by Kubek. Les Robinson, I think, believes he walked with the basketball.
Corciani really having to work this afternoon. This is Monroe, and that's for 3.
And Monroe hits the seat of his pants after drilling it. Boy, you don't want to lose him. He was wide, wide open. Can't give him that much time.
That's 5 points now for Rodney Monroe, and the lead is down to 5.
North Carolina State doing a nice job working themselves back into this basketball game.
9 minutes to play, first half.
The half court, I think this is where Duke wants to go right there. Find the big guy.
Inside the Leitner, can't get it twice. And finally taken away by Rodney Monroe.
Leitner's late coming up the court. Oh, nice hands by Kubek.
Kubek's going to take it the distance, and he's fouled before the shot by Bacali.
Corciani very disgusted with himself. Telegraphed the pass, and Kubek very alertly knocked it down and headed the other way. Boy, that kid plays hard.
And the thing is, too, he had a 5-on-4 situation because, as you mentioned, Leitner was coming up late. So they couldn't force the pressure that they normally do.
Here we go, White. He was gone.
He's used to it working out the other way, getting the assist rather than assisting the guys in the other colors' jerseys.
So the senior co-captain, Greg Kubek, goes to the line. And the 81% free throw shooter nails the first one. Hurley getting a rest. Now Fagans comes back in, and Thompson will get a rest for NC State. Kubek, one of the most unselfish players they have. High school All-American, New York's Mr. Basketball, family of 8. 8 brothers, and he came to school thinking he'd be a star and has really been just a role player, but he's played that role very admirably.
Yeah, he's played a role to 3 consecutive Final Fours. That's not too shabby.
28-21. Gianni penetrates.
Wayne Hill can't stay with him. Early being out of the game really put some pressure on Duke and defensively trying to contain Corchiani.
A little spin move by Leitner.
Corchiani tried to get down to help out but wasn't able to do it. Nice quick move by Leitner.
The rebound taken strongly by Leitner. Under 8 minutes to play now, first half. Nice move by McCaffrey. He's fouled to go to the line.
Very fine offensive performance thus far by the Duke Blue Devils. McCaffrey faked Corchiani out. Fagans gets over and swats at it. He's trying to claim that he got pushed. I don't think he's going to win that argument. In fact, I'm sure he's not.
Billy McCaffrey puts that one down. And with 7:51 to go first half, it's 33-23. Duke, and now a word from our good friends at Natural Light. 7:51 to go in the first half. The lead is 10.
And there is some intensity on the defensive end. Look at Kubek and Fagans go at one another inside. Non-contact sport, right? Yeah, sure. And watch Christian Leitner go after this rebound. Trying to make himself heard above the din as he shouts the rebound into his hands. A good, strong rebound by Leitner.
Did that with some authority. NC State has not led since it was 3-2. Right now, it's Blue Devils by 10.
Now, the problem is when you fall down 15 early in the game, which is what North Carolina State did, you make a run, and then Duke's going to respond a little bit, and you're still down 10.
Fagans, his shot is too strong, and rebound taken down by Duke. Ahead to Davis.
Boy, they're quick
nice
up the
pass
court.
to Hill.
Wow, did they get down the court. Les Robinson scratching his head over there.
Hill now has 8 points. It's a 12-point Duke lead.
Not quite as much pressure on Corchiani with Hill guarding him. But everybody else for Duke doing a great job, and there's the pickoff by McCaffrey.
Oh, what a spin move.
Les Robinson is not a particularly amused spectator at this point.
Complaining about all the physical contact on his guards. This is Monroe. Can't get it to go down. I'm going to say that was last touch by Fagans. Duke basketball.
Things just not going the way North Carolina State would like to see him go. McCaffrey's done a fine job off the bench.
He stepped on the line, though, did Brian Davis, and that's a turnover for Duke.
You know, we've seen that an awful lot in this tournament, Tim, and that is guys dribbling the ball out of bounds. Is it possible that this court is smaller?
Overnight.
Yeah. Well, no, not overnight. We saw a lot of it yesterday. We had 3 games yesterday, and there's probably 10 plays where guys dribbled the ball out of bounds.
Measuring stick out here at halftime.
You get the stick. I'll sit over here and I'll calculate.
Duke now on a 9-0 run, so Gugliotta stops that. That one's for 2.
Hill just not able to get up and bother that shot.
Thompson back in the ball game. This is Thomas Hill. NC State does not look in sync yet.
Well, they don't look in sync, but when this guy with the ball starts throwing it in the basket, their synchronization comes along very nicely.
Boy, Corchiani was just run over by Thomas Hill as Gugliotta drains the shot.
Corchiani taking a look at the referees, wanting to know what I have to do, but he actually gets a break. If they call the foul on that play, then Gugliotta doesn't get the 3-pointer.
Not only did he get run over, but then he got kicked in the head when Hill came back down.
Gugliotta really off the mark well with his shooting. 4 for 4.
Inside to Hill.
And the Rodney Monroe's going to pick up the foul.
And that brings Les Robinson back off the bench. He thought he walked.
Chris Corchiani gets a lot of credit for his assist with passes there. It's a screen.
And then he gets stepped on.
Well, sometimes it's just not your day.
So Thomas Hill goes to the line. He's a 72% free throw shooter. He's had 12 straight double-figure games. Really come on here at the end of the season. Just a sophomore. Of course, his dad, great track man, world-class hurdler. Won a bronze medal in the 110-meter event at the 1972 Olympics. And he pushes the Duke lead to 11.
There you go. You can run. You can run.
Trap Corchiani immediately. He's in some trouble. Gets it to Gugliotta. They got to get it across the line. And they call the foul on Hurley. And that'll bring the NC State faithful to their feet. They think that's long overdue.
Oh, it's interesting the eyes that you see a basketball game with. Gugliotta was lucky to keep that ball. He did the right thing. He had to take it that direction because they were running out of time.
Here's Monroe working on Davis. Corchiani, nice pump fake.
Boy, that ball's going to go in the basket.
It did, but it came back out.
Okay, it's going to stay in there.
Oh, what a move by Hill in the lane. Gets his own rebound, and that shot won't fall.
You can't leave him.
Gugliotta for 3.
I'm telling you what, Gugliotta with 13 points is keeping him in the basketball game.
Here's the battle everybody's enjoying. Hurley and Corchiani.
Oh, nice play by Thompson.
Thompson. And Thompson again.
Boy, North Carolina State, they're back to within 6. They have just hung in this basketball game.
Well, you made a point early on when a team comes out and blows out to that early lead. The opponent can stay with them.
Weather that first storm. If you can hang in there.
Just keep banging, banging, banging. Here's Leitner.
Oh, and Frank Scagliotta, the official, I think just hurt himself.
He did. He went to call that foul and somehow hurt his right leg.
When he really did. Now, of course, in this tournament, they have an alternate official. Steve Gordon is the alternate official. Looks like he hurt his knee.
Well, while they check on his injury with 3:42 remaining in the half, we'll take a timeout. It's 39-33 Blue Devils. Well, they continue to work on Frank Scagliotta, the referee, and it looks like he will be replaced by Steve Gordon. I want to remind you that the announcers for this game are selected and compensated by Raycom Sports and Entertainment and JP Sports. Any use of this broadcast without the express permission of Raycom and JP Sports is prohibited.
There you get a look at Steve Gordon. He was sitting over there enjoying himself. Now he's got to go to work.
Shouldn't have had that hot dog and a Coke.
Well, now those guys, they come and they're ready to go. They prepare for a game just the same way they would as if they were fishing. And there you can see Frank getting that leg wrap. Looks like some type of an injury to his calf, and you know that he had a wrap on that as he pulled up his pant leg and they started looking at it. He had a wrap on that to start the ball game, so maybe that's an old injury that he's had that has just reoccurred. Frank, shoot, every time I'm at a basketball game, Frank's working the game, so maybe he's just worn down.
You know what? He's going to come back too. Here's There's a difference between pain and injury. You can play with pain.
Well, that's an old football player talking.
3 minutes, 40 seconds remaining in the half. It's 39-33 Duke.
So Steve Gordon will sit down and put the jacket back on. And for sure won't have any Cokes and hot dogs.
Dan, this game continued to get more physical. Monroe. Yes.
Well, now they've kept Monroe under wraps pretty closely.
That was for 2.
Now he's got 7 points. Okay, they haven't had him that far under wraps. Gugliotta just throwing in those long ones. They're back within 4 with 3 minutes left in the half.
State continues to chip away as we approach the 3-minute mark. First half. This is Kubek to Hurley. We'll double down quickly on Leitner.
Nobody's guarding Kubek.
Leitner back door and rolls it in. Now, here is the question. Did Kubek touch it while it was in the cylinder?
Frank Scagliotta says he didn't. So it's no question mark at all, Tim. It's a done deal.
Boy, a lot of the people here thought he did, and I did too.
Well, you don't have a gray shirt and a whistle, so you don't count.
I can act like it.
Oh, nice defense by Leitner.
Hurley back into the paint to Kubek, and Hill can't convert it.
Maybe one pass too many there by Kubek.
Corciani wheels past Hurley. And
looks like Fagans. We showed you a little earlier in the ball game a replay where Fagans and Kubek were really locked up with one another, and that time Fagans just knocks Kubek out of bounds. You were talking about that prior play, whether Kubek touches the ball in the cylinder or not. The shot goes up, Kubek gets up. Hard to tell whether he touched it or not. You're still convinced that he did.
I still think he got it.
He looked innocent to me.
That's the second foul on Fagan, so he'll go out of the ball game. He gets a breather. Bacali comes back in for NC State, and the Wolfpack over the limit with 17 fouls.
Duke, of course, is a team that loves to attack the basket. They shoot an awful lot of free throws, and the only way you can do that is if you get fouled. And North Carolina State is not a team that can afford to foul very much.
Kubek hits the front end. I told you earlier he comes from a family of 8 children, so he knew the meaning of a depth chart early.
Small family. All depends on your perspective there, my friend.
Oh, I know. I'm not saying anything. You came from 11.
Absolutely.
I came from a family of 4 boys, no girls. It was survival of the fittest. This is Corciani, top of the key, now sees the lane and gives it back to Thompson, who throws it away.
One pass too many. Thompson really not looking for his offense very much early in the game. 12 turnovers now for North Carolina State. Thompson gets his ball right next to the basket. When you're 6'10", you got to shoot it. He's trying to pass it to Monroe. The question is, what is Monroe going to do with it with Leitner and Kubek standing right next to him? Got to take the ball and shoot it in the basket. Corciani expected Leitner to cut, and Leitner stood there. It couldn't have been a very hard time surviving if you had 4 boys and no girls. The adventure is when you have sisters.
You know, I was just thinking, you come from a family of 11 children. No wonder you know how to cook. Monroe for 3.
You just saw that graphic with the turnovers that Les Robinson's team has suffered. They only average about 13 on the year. They've already turned it over 12 times, and that's why they're behind by 5 points. You got to give the Duke defense credit for those turnovers.
Here's Hill.
That good pass.
The Leitner. No, he walked. No bucket. Under a minute to play now, first half.
Mike Krzyzewski saying he was pushed. Probably some other things, too. There's about a 9-second difference between the shot clock and the game clock. Shot clock at 32.
Here's Corciani running one-hander. His shot is short. And Corciani fights for the ball and no call. Leitner comes up with it. And Hurley will come out. Shot clock is off. 20 seconds now remain in the half.
Leitner walks up the court. He's worn out from that battle against Corciani and Thompson.
Duke playing for the last shot. And a 5-point lead. They call the block from Corciani.
I think it's a pretty good call. Watch Corciani just get right up on him.
That is the second on Corciani, and Hurley will go to the line shooting 1-and-1 with 11 seconds rather remaining in the half.
The whistle blows after Hurley makes the pivot, Tim, but I thought the foul occurred when Corciani got up and bodied up so close to him. I mean, he was right on top of him pushing him, and I think that was a foul on Corciani.
Leitner goes out of the ball game. Billy McCaffrey comes back in for Duke, and Hurley at the line. Kubek shot blocked by Thompson, and he hits it, falling away. Corciani better hurry. One left. Air ball.
You know, the problem with these tournament games is there's just not very much intensity, huh?
Well, that half had just about everything. Sports Center coming up. Paul Cameron still to come at halftime. Our score 45-38. Now a word from our good friends at Natural Light.
Today's ACC action is brought to you by Nationwide Insurance, Ford, Norwegian Cruise Line, Diet Pepsi, NCND, and by Natural Light.
Again, it was very, very physical.
Very physical, and when both teams shoot the ball well, I think that's something that goes in the favor of Duke. Duke has been able to get the ball inside. You can see they've gone to the free throw line 9 times as opposed to 1 for North Carolina State. You can see 20 inside points to 12. I think one of the biggest stats, though, is those turnovers. North Carolina State turning the ball over a lot, and Duke's defense is what forces those turnovers.
And as far as the injury report, Frank Scagliotta, our official, our referee today, who was injured in the first half, will continue. He will continue here in the second half.
North Carolina State led by Gugliotta. You can see there Googs with 3 for 3 from 3-point range. And there you get a look at the Duke scores, and you notice down at the bottom there the bench points. Guys coming off the bench playing a total of 22 minutes, getting 15 points. We might add, though, that the bench points for North Carolina State involve one guy. The North Carolina State bench consists of Majin Bakali, and so he came in, he played 5 minutes, he didn't score.
That's it. While you were doing that, I was talking to Frank Scagliotta and asked him what the problem was. He said he pulled a muscle in his calf, as you had alluded to earlier. He said it feels like a cramp that won't go away, but he will continue. 45-38 is our halftime score.
Of course, if you're Frank Scagliotta or anybody involved in this basketball game, you're going to have to get pretty badly hurt to want to leave. The officials, they work toward this tournament the entire year, just like the players do, and certainly when you get the opportunity to be the referee in an ACC semifinal game, you want to make sure you stay out there. Christian Leitner, we mentioned, 11 points in the first half. Pretty good first half for him. In addition to those 11 points, he had 6 rebounds. He was 5 of 8 from the floor.
Now Duke has won the title or lost to the team which did win the title every year since 1984.
I'm sure they prefer the first part of that, winning the title. Doesn't help to lose to the guys who do win it. Man-to-man defense for the Duke Blue Devils. Brian Davis matched up against Rodney Monroe.
This is Fagans. Down to Monroe on the baseline.
It's tough to get it into Monroe down on the baseline. He can operate down there, but you get it in, and not only is Davis there, but Leitner's there to help.
Monroe over top of Brian Davis. Fight for the rebound, and Davis comes up with it. Hurley pushes it quickly.
Oh, who blocked
Thomas
that?
Hill has it blocked from behind, and the Blue Devils will get it back.
Mike Krzyzewski calling the play on this inbounds pass from underneath the basket. Duke got an easy one in the first half on their inbounds play underneath the basket.
Brian Davis, Leitner, Thomas Hill, Grant Hill, and Hurley start for Duke. Thomas Hill drains it for 2.
For North Carolina State, you want to make sure that Duke doesn't get off on the same kind of run that they used to open the game. You have to start quickly if you're the Wolfpack.
Monroe with an off-balance shot as he tripped down through the lane. And here comes Duke with a 3-on-2. Leitner.
Not a good start for North Carolina State, Tim. A lot of standing around on the offensive end, and you can't do that against the Duke Blue Devils. So suddenly they're down by 11.
The concern on the face of Les Robinson in his first year as head coach with NC State. This is Monroe. Boy, they jump and double him quickly. He's fouled by Grant Hill.
Monroe moving very effectively without the basketball, Tim, but as he moves through, Grant Hill picks up his second foul. If you watch Monroe without the ball, he continues to move, but he's getting bumped all the time, and as he caught that basketball, he fumbled it. Monroe's a guy that really catches the ball ready to let it go, and that physical pressure, I think, having its toll.
Monroe with 10 points thus far in the game. This is Gugliotta. He had the hot hand in the first half.
Thomas Hill trying to play right up against him. That's
almost
a tough pass.
throws it away. Monroe gets it back.
Nice pass.
Pass to Thompson.
Brian Davis against Monroe is a pretty good matchup for Mike Krzyzewski. Davis has the size and the quickness to stay with Monroe on the perimeter, and the size to prevent him from posting up easily. Man-to-man defense for the Wolfpack. The State defense, a much more passive kind of man-to-man defense than we've seen from the Duke Blue Devils.
Boy, Hill and Thompson really bumping and grinding down low, and Leitner gets position and scores.
You allow Duke to run that half-court offense, and they're going to get the ball to Christian Leitner.
He now has 15. Anticipation by Grant Hill. He is whistled with a foul, and so he picks up his third very quickly here in the second half.
Fagan's doing a very nice job working for position, and Hill bided his time and timed it pretty well, but he was called for coming through Brian Fagan's down underneath.
Second team foul against Duke this half. Both have been on Grant Hill.
Hurley continues to do a pretty nice job keeping pressure on the basketball.
Monroe right over top of Hurley. Can't get it to go down.
Oh, nice pass.
What a pass ahead to Brian Davis. And he'll go to the line.
And if he makes the free throw, Duke back to the 14-point lead. Monroe attacking the basketball. Davis running down the court. You notice Monroe attacked the ball, and then Corchiani attacked the ball, trying to defend that fast break out at midcourt. Two guys picking up Hurley at midcourt. Davis finding the lane.
And that's 3 on Fagans. So we'll keep an eye on that. Brian Davis makes it a 3-point play.
And Tim, North Carolina State started the ball game in a 15-point hole, and now with 17 minutes left to go, they're back in a 14-point hole. It's tough to keep digging these for yourself because you run out of time to get out.
They're going to call Bobby Hurley for pushing off. That's his second.
Duke has maintained its pressure. We've talked about Hurley keeping pressure on the basketball. Hurley's right there. He's pushing. He's reaching. He's trying to keep Corchiani from looking and finding open people. That time he's called for having his hands against Corchiani. If you allow Corchiani any breathing room at all, he's going to kill you.
Inside pass to Gugliotta, followed by Thompson, and Duke with the rebound. Thomas Hill up top over to Brian Davis with the pump fake and the drive, and knocked out by Thompson.
Duke can afford to be very patient on the offensive end of the court, looking inside for Christian Leitner.
Outside to Hurley, it's for 3 if it goes. Rebound Thompson. Monroe's second.
Corchiani's going to penetrate inside. A lot of physical play as the defense closes on Corchiani. There's Hurley reaching, Leitner reaching. Good pass to Monroe. Monroe's called because he just throws that arm out a little bit, but that's enough to cause the foul.
15:59 remaining in the ball game. It's a 14-point lead for Duke. And now a word from our good friends at Budweiser. 54-40 with 15:59 remaining in the ball game from the Charlotte Coliseum. John Barry, the famous one there.
John Barry on your right. That's his dad, Rick Barry, on the left-hand portion of your screen. Rick Barry, a couple of kids who can really play, and of course one of the greatest players of all time. What do you figure he's doing? Teaching there?
I think he's analyzing the game.
We got enough guys doing that.
This is Thomas Hill.
North Carolina State again playing in that passive man-to-man defense, trying to defend against the ball going inside.
Grant Hill penetrates, kicks it back outside to Davis, who double pumps and comes up short on the shot.
Fagans that time was matched up inside against Leitner. You mentioned he's got 3 personal fouls. He was very physical with Leitner on the inside. They're going to get a foul here. Thomas Hill holds up his hand, but the foul is called against Bobby Hurley.
They both raised their hands when the whistle blew. What does that tell you?
Maybe there should be 2 fouls?
The old sandwich. Bobby Hurley now with 3, right? Brian Davis picks up one. That'll be his second.
Duke just keeping the pressure on. North Carolina State in the second half, Tim, to start the half, only 1 of 5 from the field, and it's difficult to cut into a lead when you're not scoring.
Now that's 5 team fouls against Duke. This is Monroe for 3.
It's easier to cut into the lead when you do that.
Hurley has the shot, releases it quickly, and hits for 3.
Chris Corchiani really likes to leave his man on defense and go and give some help to his teammates, and his defensive game is very effective when he can get away with that. But Hurley has shot the ball very well today, and so he's limited Chris Corchiani's team defensive effectiveness, and Corchiani throws it out of bounds.
So that turnover stops the clock with 14:38 remaining.
Corchiani, who tied Kenny Anderson for the lead in steals during the course of the ACC regular season, didn't have any steals in the first half. So Duke doing a good job protecting the ball against Corchiani.
The lead is still 14. Corchiani attempted to steal, left Hurley alone, and he feeds Leitner, and Leitner's fouled by Thompson.
That's just what we were talking about, Tim. Chris Corchiani leaving his man to go and try to help out. That time, Hurley was able to catch the ball and penetrate inside and get it to Leitner. If Hurley is going to be that active, penetrating or shooting the basketball, then Hurley's going to have to stay closer to him. Or excuse me, then Corchiani's going to have to stay closer to him.
Christian Leitner goes to the line, a junior, majoring in sociology, and the 78% free throw shooter. This is one here. His name is Christian. His brother's name is Chris. Rattles that one in.
He's got some very brave parents. Man-to-man defense by Duke. Much slower pace in the second half, Tim, and I think that really favors the Duke Blue Devils. Another turnover.
Corchiani throws it away. Thomas Hill underneath converts. That's 2 trips down the court in a row now. Corchiani's thrown it away. Now, is that a fatigue factor because those guys went so long and so hard yesterday?
I don't know. It may be, Tim. I don't really think fatigue has much to do with it. We're just seeing a great defensive effort by the Duke Blue Devils.
Forciani penetrates here and finally rattles it down.
And I'll tell you what, Tim, when the ball's not going in the basket and you're falling further and further behind, you begin to feel much more tired. If you're scoring and it's a real close game, you don't really feel that fatigue. One thing that's going to be difficult for North Carolina State is being down by 15 points is to try to exert some defensive pressure to try to get back in the ballgame. Gugliotta, who was 5 for 5 from the field in the first half with 13 points, has only taken 1 shot in this half and hasn't scored, and there's another easy basket for Duke.
Now Leitner pushes the lead to 17, and time becomes a factor as we go under 13 minutes.
Tim, you know, we talked early in the basketball game about the length of the passes that North Carolina State is making on offense. The Duke defense cuts off your normal passing lanes and makes you throw the ball further than you would want to. And if you have to pass the ball further, it gives more chance for the defense to get in and get a hand on it. Or it makes it, you know, it's much easier to use a football analogy to throw the ball 5 yards than it is 20.
Majin Bakali comes in for Fagans. McCaffrey and Kubek come in for Davis and Hill. That's Thomas Hill. Grant Hill still in the ball game, and this is Hurley.
Duke really spreading the offense. You want to move those guys on defense around. You want to make them play defense because they did go for so long yesterday.
Slapped away. Leitner picks it up. Shot clock at 10. Shot clock at 5. Inside the Leitner with 2 on the clock, and they score. You talk about maximizing the 45-second shot clock. Duke just did it. Rodney Monroe's shot off to the right.
And the game may have gotten away from North Carolina State, Tim.
You have that feeling that Duke is in complete control right now.
19-point lead, 11 minutes and 47 seconds left to go in the basketball game. Duke seemingly able to operate at will on the offensive end of the court, and obviously concerned Les Robinson.
And Grant Hill is fouled rather rudely by Rodney Monroe, and that's 3 on Monroe. Now Leitner to go out of the ball game and get a breather as Crawford Palmer comes in.
North Carolina State has only scored 7 points in this half, Tim. They've played a little more than 8 minutes, and they've only got 7 points. Not going to cut in very far to that lead if you keep on that point-a-minute pace.
Grant Hill at the line misses the first one. One of the truly great freshman talents in the country. High school All-American from South Lakes High School. Reston, Virginia. Also the class valedictorian. Forciani running one-hander. Grant Hill blocks it, and Hurley loses it out of bounds. So there's timeout on the floor. We'll take one as well with 11:34 remaining in the ball game. It's Duke 64, NC State 45. With 11:34 remaining in the ball game, Duke has its largest lead of the day, 19 points.
And the North Carolina State shooting has deserted them at the start of the second half, much like it did at the start of the ball game. You can see in the first half the Wolfpack shooting 55%, but they started very slowly. In this half, they're 3 of 9. Duke starting the second half the way they did the game. They started with 8 of 11. That's what they've done in the second half. Leitner 4 of 4 in the second half. Rodney Monroe only 1 of 5.
Well, they made a pretty good charge to end up the first half. We'll see if they can do that here. Gugliotta with the miss, and Hurley will bring it up for the Blue Devils. Antonio Lang in the ball game now. He was a starter when this year began, and because of the development of Hill, both Hills, Thomas and Grant, his playing time diminished. Crawford Palmer couldn't unload the basketball and is charged with a 5-second call. So it's turnover Duke. NC State gets it back. And Palmer will go out. Leitner will come back in. Stay tuned for the NCNB Players of the Game Award, brought to you by NCNB. Fagans follows, and he'll go to the line. Correction, Thompson.
It's very difficult for Rodney Monroe to catch the ball on the wing and penetrate in without any screens because Duke has help coming. Not only if he beats McCaffrey, then he's got some help to deal with. A very tough shot. He missed it. Thompson doing a nice job on the boards. We talked about Duke before the game and the importance of rebounding well against North Carolina State, and they've really done that today. North Carolina State hasn't really hurt Duke with any offensive rebounds.
Thompson, after missing that shot, gives a little disgusted smile as you look at Fagans, who's sitting on the bench. Makes the second, 64-46.
You can see North Carolina State going to try to show some full court pressure. Got to create some steals and some easy shot opportunities if you're going to get back in the ball game. Notice the Wolfpack trying to extend the defensive pressure, not nearly as passive as it has been most of the game.
Antonio Lang puts one in.
Palmer screened off the defense there. Thompson couldn't get out to Lang, and he had a wide open shot.
That pushes the Duke lead to 20. Inside to Thompson, and Palmer will be charged with his second personal. In a game many thought would probably be the most competitive of the early going here.
Certainly a very competitive first half. North Carolina State moving pretty well on the offensive end that time. That's foul number 7 against Duke. So Thompson will be at the line once again, this time shooting 1-on-1.
Now, Kevin Thompson is not a very good free throw shooter. 53%. And he drills that one. It's a little reverse psychology. And he hits them both.
Fagans is going to come into the game for Thompson.
Fagans has 3 personals.
Fagans a little bit quicker, obviously. So by putting Fagans in the game, maybe the Wolfpack going to try to pressure the ball even more than they have the last couple of trips. Corciani with a steal.
And the push of McCaffrey. It was obvious the game plan. Corciani was going way outside to Monroe to attempt the 3. Monroe did hit it, but the foul was called first. They do need those points now in a hurry.
Now that's what scares Mike Krzyzewski, the presence of mind of the senior Chris Corciani to realize that a layup is only 2 points, but Monroe's wide open for 3, so get it out to Monroe for the 3.
Lang goes back out of the ball game, and Grant Hill comes back in for Duke.
And let's face it, with the firepower that North Carolina can put out on North Carolina State has out on the court from 3-point range. Mike Krzyzewski does not yet feel overly comfortable as Corciani cuts the lead to 17. And Gugliotta and Kubek slapping at one another on the free throw line, and Frank Scagliotta is going and telling them to stop.
Corciani at the line did a great job on Kenny Anderson yesterday. And he hits them both.
I think you'd have to say that in the matchup of point guards today, Bobby Hurley, though, has had the advantage.
Ahead to McCaffrey, the foul on McCollum as we go under 10 minutes. The lead is 16 points right now for Duke, and it has gotten very, very quiet here at the Charlotte Coliseum.
You're right, Tim. The big lead sort of has taken the starch out of the crowd.
Sounds like a library. Billy McCaffrey puts that one in.
Duke, of course, a very fine free throw shooting team, so if you're going to try to come back against them by fouling and putting them at the line, you may be in for a very long afternoon.
McCaffrey with 8 points now. Hits the second one. He has 9. His brother Eddie's a fine receiver on the football team at Stanford. 18-point lead. Corciani takes it down the lane, spins and scores.
If you have to work that hard to score every basket, Tim, you know things aren't going exactly the way you want to.
Backside to Grant Hill.
Duke doing a very, very nice job attacking the North Carolina State pressure. An excellent pass.
Rodney Monroe No bucket found out front. It'll be on Grant Hill, and that'll be number 4 on Hill.
21, we're not in 2.
Crimson Tide of Alabama overcoming the suspension of Robert Horry, beating arch rival Auburn, advancing to the finals of the SEC tournament.
So the Tide rolls over the War Eagles, the Auburn Tigers. Monroe banks that one in. The ACC's leading scorer, Rodney Monroe, a senior from Hagerstown, Maryland. Thompson comes back in. Gugliotta will go out.
Tim Monroe comes in averaging almost 28 points a game, only has 15 thus far, as Duke has done a real fine job against him. Gugliotta yet to score in the second half.
Monroe had 24 yesterday under his average.
They had such great balance, the Wolfpack did, though, yesterday, Tim.
Boy, they did. You're right.
It was just a very fine team effort by North Carolina State yesterday. They've run into a buzzsaw here today, though.
This is Leitner, has it blocked by Thompson, and last touch by Monroe. So Monroe gives a disgusted look.
That's the way it's gone for the Wolfpack today. And you see how Les Robinson feels about it.
There we go.
Ball goes right to Monroe, and he can't hang on.
Grant Hill, the power move right over top of Bagans.
Another easy basket on the inbounds play underneath. Bagans with 3 personal fouls, sort of backing off. Duke now into the 2-3 zone.
Thompson? Yes. Les Robinson had the line of the tournament. Yesterday, after they beat Georgia Tech, they asked him to introduce Corciani and Monroe to the press. He said they should introduce me. They are much more known.
And I think what we've got, we might have a double foul here. No, we've got a foul called against Kubek. Kubek and Fagans have been going at one another all afternoon long, and here's Kubek. He gets the good screen, and then he decides for good measure he's going to pop him. He got caught that time.
So that's the 10th team foul. They'll go over there now, shoot 2. Kubek and McCaffrey will go back to the bench.
Really helps Mike Krzyzewski's ball club, Tim, with all the players that he has on the bench. They can play that aggressive defensive style. You're going to get some fouls, but when you've got the kind of players that he can bring in off the bench, the team can keep rolling right along.
Bagans puts that one in. On the floor now for Duke after those substitutions. Grant and Thomas Hill, Brian Davis, Leitner and Hurley. If he had missed, there would have been a lane violation call on Thomas Hill. Lost his balance and stepped into the paint.
Isn't it amazing how that colored area of the lane just sort of pulls you in?
The lead's been cut to 14. 8:15 remaining in the ballgame. This is Thomas Hill, goes to Hurley.
Hurley did a nice job getting open. He ran through the lane about 4 times with Corciani chasing him before he got open for the basketball.
Bagans knocks it out of bounds. Shot clock will stay on 15 with that rule change this year, rewarding the defense for good defense. Last year they would have reset it.
One of the problems that you have if you're North Carolina State trying to defend against Duke, they've got the floor spread, and Leitner has a lot of room to operate inside.
Shot clock down to 9. Shot clock at 5. Hurley now will start to penetrate. Outside to Leitner with 2 on the clock. And Monroe with the rebound. NC State making a bit of a charge, and the Wolfpack faithful can feel it. Outside to Corciani, it's for 3 if it goes.
Oh my!
You see that?
Well, he got up so high in the air he couldn't keep his feet when he came down. Thomas Hill flying through the lane.
Davis got a great block out. Now watch Hill come for the rebound.
Nobody blocks him out, and he soars up there.
Whoa.
Trips over the back of Leitner and walks.
7:34 remaining. The Blue Devils lead 72-58. And we'll take timeout for this word from our good friends at Budweiser. Pizza Hut game summary. You don't have to be a Phi Beta Kappa to see why Duke is in the lead.
Duke doing an excellent job executing on both ends of the court. That 36% North Carolina State field goal shooting percentage. It's really affected by the Duke defense. Duke getting a lot of easy opportunities. You can see they've shut off Tom Gugliotta entirely. Christian Laettner having a big game.
Duke 73% field goal percentage in the second half. 7:32 remaining in the ball game.
Tim, I'll tell you what, we've got a little more than 7 minutes left in the game. North Carolina State hits a 3 here and cuts it to 11. We've got an adventure, and there Laettner's going to get the foul.
That'll stop the clock with 7:21 remaining.
North Carolina State not out of this basketball game yet. There's plenty of time left unless Robinson's troops have the offensive capability that they can come back in the ball game.
So Rodney Monroe will be at the line. He'll be shooting 2. Trying to cut the lead to 14.
Pretty much a cinch at the free throw line, huh?
It's a 12-point ball game with 7:21 left. So the Wolfpack bring Fagans back in. Thompson will sit down. And NC State has reeled them back in from a 20-point lead to 12.
It's very important that they force Duke into some difficult shot opportunities. You don't shoot 73%, taking hard shots. Duke's been getting easy shots. North Carolina State has to cut that off.
Duke also has 10 team fouls. The Wolfpack have a foul to give. Inside the Laettner. Gugliotta almost gets it. Thomas Hill, though, saves it and throws it underneath. And here's a turnover. Corciani can't believe it.
Corciani was throwing the ball to Rodney Monroe, and as Brian Fagans ran past, he stuck his hand out and knocked the ball out of bounds. He thought the pass was to him.
That was a big turnover because I think the State players felt that they definitely were making that charge. Here's Grant Hill, and he's fouled by Monroe.
He's fouled by Monroe, but it's on the pass. Well, that's 4 fouls on Rodney Monroe. There won't be any shots here for the Duke Blue Devils.
That was the foul we said they had to give, but it is his fourth personal.
Makes it very difficult when you're trying to apply defensive pressure if you've got to worry about the fact that you have 4 personal fouls.
Here we go.
Calling that on Fagans.
That's Fagans' 4th personal foul. So you've got 2 guys out on the court for the North Carolina State Wolfpack with 4 personal fouls. And that is team foul number 7. So now Duke, in the person of Christian Laettner, is going to be going to the free throw line. Boy, that was a big turnover.
It really was a major turnover. Laettner misses it, though, and Gugliotta pulls down the rebound. And how about this? Rodney Monroe undercut by Brian Davis.
And Mike Krzyzewski stands up, takes 2 fingers and puts them on his head, telling his players that they have to think out there. You don't want to let North Carolina State come back in the basketball game standing at the free throw line shooting the ball. Duke has been very effective with their defense, but I tell you what, there's no defense against Rodney Monroe standing 15 feet away with nobody allowed to guard him.
Okay, now Davis goes out of the ball game. He has 4 personals. But because the Devils are over 10 team fouls, Monroe will be shooting 2 shots. And he hits the first one.
With Davis out of the basketball game, it's a little more difficult defensive matchup against Rodney Monroe as well.
Monroe can cut the lead to 10, and does. So Thompson now will come back in for the Wolfpack, and Fagans will sit down. Les Robinson working his team hard now. 6:20 left in the ball game. Still plenty of time.
I think one of the keys here is obviously going to be Hurley, because look for Corciani to leave Hurley and try to double team.
It's an 8-0 NC State run. Duke trying to change that right here. Gugliotta almost has it. Shot clock under 20.
Boy, Leitner working very hard for the basketball, and Thompson doing a nice job defensively.
There's the turnover. Ahead to Corciani, no. Taken away by Grant Hill.
That's what we were talking about with Corciani. He really created that play by slapping the ball away, but North Carolina State not able to capitalize.
NC State, with plenty of time, has to realize they don't have to rush like that. 5.5 minutes left.
Just get the idea that this crowd is not really ready to believe that this is going to happen, but maybe one more Duke turnover and a North Carolina State conversion is going to make believers out of everybody. I tell you what, there's one guy in here who believes, and he's the head guy over on the Duke bench. He's just called a timeout to talk about it.
5:24 left in the ball game. The lead has been cut to 10. When we come back, Duke will have the ball with 22 on the shot clock. The lead has been cut to 10. Duke did lead by 20 in this half. We've got 5:24 left in the ball game. The Blue Devils have 2 timeouts remaining. NC State has 2 timeouts remaining. Blue Devils haven't scored the last 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And there's 22 on the shot clock right now with Duke in possession.
One of the things that Mike Krzyzewski wanted to be sure was that his team knew exactly what to do to get a score on this possession, break that North Carolina State run.
This is Hurley.
Corciani hit him.
Is fouled by Corciani. That's 3 for Corciani.
Tim, we were talking about Hurley being a key guy in this particular stretch, that Corciani was going to leave and try to steal the ball. Corciani dropped down inside. Leitner recognizing, getting it back to Hurley. Corciani not able to recover in time.
Bobby Hurley, 69% free throw shooter, hits this one. He now has 10 points and the lead is 11. And he gets the third because of his three-point attempt beyond the arc.
And that's one way to break a run, is to hit a three-pointer.
Those are big.
Blue Devils, you don't want to give up easy baskets quickly. You want to make North Carolina State work on the offensive end of the court to run time off the clock.
Corciani penetrates, kicks it outside to Bacali. His shot very flat. And Leitner with the rebound. McCaffrey, yes.
Duke getting a wide open shot off the fast break. That's how they've been able to shoot such a high percentage in the second half. They've had very easy opportunities.
5 straight points for Duke now. Big follow inside by Thompson. Cuts it back to 13.
Just get the feeling, Tim, that last little run, those 5 points in a row by Duke, really took the wind out of the sails of the North Carolina State Wolfpack. Just don't see the same kind of intensity on the defensive end of the court right at the moment.
Oh, nice move by Thomas Hill. His 11th point. Monroe throws up a brick.
Not left with very many options at this point in the ball game. Tim down 15 with 3.5 to go. Looks like Bacali gets that foul against Bobby Hurley.
You know what? You made a heck of a point, though. They did feel that charge ends. You can just see it on the players there on the bench and on the court. Look at Corciani in the background there.
Very interesting second half. State falls closer and closer and closer, and Mike Krzyzewski calls a timeout, sets up a play, and his team executes it, and they put an end to it.
Duke, an excellent free throw shooting team. Of course, NC State leads the league at the line. 71-64, and this one's over. 3:30 left. Here's Monroe. Goes with his left hand, knocked out to Duke. Bobby Hurley on the right side. Goes to Grant Hill.
Oh, nice pass.
And Thomas Hill is fouled by Corciani. And that'll be 4 on Corciani.
Duke out and running on the fast break. Hurley's going to throw it up to Grant Hill. Just a little touch pass back to Thomas Hill. The Duke Blue Devils have all 5 of their guys in the picture. North Carolina State only has 2. The legs are a little wobbly for the Wolfpack.
Oh, you can't tell me that bye doesn't get you some fresh legs, and that's...
Well, I think the bye does get you some fresh legs, Tim, but I think the one thing that makes the legs more tired than anything else is the fact that you're down 17 with 3 minutes left to go in the game. You start feeling that fatigue when you're out of the ball game.
Thomas Hill hits that free throw. Kubek prepares to come in.
In the second half, Rodney Monroe has only made 1 field goal. Tom Gugliotta has not made any. Those are 2 of the biggest offensive weapons for North Carolina State. Corciani walks in early. Doesn't matter as the ball goes in the basket.
It's that pain again. Pulling him in.
Tremendous defensive effort by the Duke Blue Devils, and I think a very fine effort by Bobby Hurley. Corciani gets by him right there, but you talk a lot about the point guard matchup going into this basketball game, and I think the advantage in this one, you have to say, has gone to Bobby Hurley. He did a tremendous job against Chris Corciani.
Way outside for Gugliotta, and Corciani has no shot at a rebound going up against Hill. Corciani, and he gets the tray. Grant Hill uncontested.
Well, Thompson was trying to contest him. That was just a great move.
Gugliotta fouled at the other end by Antonio Lang. Boy, Grant Hill, what a freshman he is.
Of course, with North Carolina State trying to steal the ball, you're going to have these open court situations. Thompson just can't stay with him, and he stops. You do that because you know he's going to dunk, and you don't want the ball to come through, hit you on the head.
Grant Hill now goes out. Marty Clark comes in. Freshman from Westchester.
Tom Gugliotta still has not scored in the second half. He had 13 points in the first half, none in the second half.
And he breaks the ice.
That's really cruel.
2:35 remaining. 85-68 Duke. This is Marty Clark. Has it knocked out by Gugliotta. So Gooch with good defense there. Fagans. Blocked by Clark.
Hurley's done a nice job controlling the basketball as Duke has tried to hang on to it.
We've got the 2-minute warning as we go under 2 minutes.
I don't know about you football guys.
You know, they split during the regular season, these 2 teams. And in the game in Durham that Duke won, Hurley played extremely well that day against Corciani, and he's done it again here. Here's Hurley. Yes.
He's right on cue. What an outstanding performance by Bobby Hurley.
Monroe comes the other way, can't hit the 3. Antonio Lang with the rebound.
Just a matter now of what the final score is going to be.
And Gugliotta with the foul on Lang.
What we're seeing out here, Tim, is the last ACC performance by a couple of the great performers in the history of this league, Chris Corciani and Rodney Monroe. Tom Gugliotta going out of the basketball game. You get a look there at the Duke bench. Well, I'll tell you what, as somebody who has watched this guy for 4 years and watched his running mate Rodney Monroe for 4 years, it's just not going to be the same league without him. A couple of great performers and class kids.
Certainly one of the strongest backcourts ever in any conference.
We'll miss them. I'm sure there's 7 coaches in the league that'll be very happy to see them go.
Antonio Lang hits that. And it's a 21-point Duke lead. Corciani to Fagans. And Clark with another rebound.
And to the end, Corciani's over there trying to steal the ball. Of course, the Wolfpack, they're going to play again. Wait till Sunday and see where they get selected in the NCAA tournament.
Corciani has his shot blocked. Back to Bacali to Corciani, and he'll look for help. It does. It's Lee underneath. And Lee is fouled by Antonio Lang. Well, NC State now will go to 19-10 on the year. And certainly to get a bid in the NCAA, the selections are made tomorrow afternoon. The Duke Blue Devils 26-6 with this win today. The top seed moves on. We'll await the winner of the next game.
Rodney Monroe leaving the basketball game to a fine round of applause from everybody in the Charlotte Coliseum. A lot of the folks standing. And there goes Chris Corciani. Corciani finishes the game with 13, Rodney Monroe with 19. And this is a nice touch as you get a look around the Charlotte Coliseum, a standing ovation for those 2 very fine players.
Fire and ice. Chris Corciani, there he is, fire, all ACC, the all-time NCAA assist leader. And Rodney Monroe, of course, the ACC's leading scorer, as Lee misses the second shot. So Duke will play the winner of the Virginia-North Carolina game.
And that game coming up next, that ought to be an adventure.
Well, it really should be. Now, I did the first match up in Charlottesville. That went double overtime between Carolina and the Cavaliers. North Carolina won them both.
North Carolina really presents some matchup problems for the University of Virginia with their great size, but Virginia is one of those teams, Tim, if they can shoot the ball well, then they're going to be in the basketball game.
Both teams had to work hard to advance. Clemson with its controlled offense last night gave North Carolina fits, and then of course Virginia and Wake Forest had a pretty good Donnybrook. Rogers with 4 personals for Wake helped Virginia. Ahead to go to Fagans. 18 seconds remain in this semifinal game, and Duke's going to win it. Fagans will go to the line, though, in an attempt to put some more points on the board for NC State. Fouled by Christian S.
One shot, here we go.
That's one way to get your name in the box score. And as a person who had some experience at getting in the box score in that particular manner, I like to do that in the ACC tournament. This is the type of the game where in the old days they used to have the ACC tournament highlight film. You always tried to get in the game and do something, so maybe you get in the highlight film.
5 seconds remain. Clark to Lang. What a way to end it. 93-72 the final. The Duke Blue Devils move on to their 17th ACC final. We'll be back with more right after this. Stay with us. Across the court, here's Paul Cameron. Paul?
Okay, thanks so much. Here we are with Coach Mike Krzyzewski. And Mike, how much did the day off mean to you guys, the buy into this round?
I think it helped us a lot because we used it positively. And for State to have to play last night and then today, I thought in the second half they got a little tired, and that's to our benefit. They're an outstanding team. If they're fresh, I'm not sure if we beat them.
Well, you guys came out of the box, and I thought your defense really pressured them into some early mistakes, and you cashed in. Your jumpers were falling, and suddenly you're up by 15.
Yeah, our goal this whole week was to start off Saturday afternoon without being tight. You know, like everyone was saying, well, the bye will make you tight. And I said, hey, the bye doesn't have to make us tight. The bye can make us fresh and even more explosive. Let's concentrate on that. And again, you can say that to a bunch of guys, but they have to do it, and they did it.
Thought McCaffrey coming off the bench in the first half really gave you a lift.
No, that's a good point. You're pretty good. Is somebody telling you these things?
I've done this a couple of times before.
No, Billy's had a great week of practice, and I thought he was one of the keys to our win over North Carolina with 5 assists and no turnovers. And he's in a groove right now.
Oh, yeah.
His shot's coming, but his whole game, he's a good playmaker, and he forgot about that part of his game.
That has really been a role for you. You know, it's kind of changed your lineup, especially I go back in my mind to the loss at Virginia early on and what your club looked like then, and now what a completely different club. You've really kind of put it together.
Yeah, well, it's a matter of just getting to know all our guys. We had such a young team to begin with. Now we're older. Kids are confident in who they're supposed to be. They understand their roles, and we've adjusted things to take advantage of our key players. Grant Hill has had a great 3 weeks, and Thomas Hill's been one of the best players in the conference. While our 2 stable guys, Leitner and Hurley, have continued. They've played at a high level all year long.
Let me get one more question in here, and that is that you've been to the championship, personally coaching the Duke Blue Devils now 4 times previous. What does it mean to you to go to tomorrow's finals?
No, it's a great honor. I've always said, not always, but in the last 7, 8 years, once I knew the meaning of this tournament, that it's the greatest. It's the greatest conference tournament, and we're going to always play like it's the greatest tournament. And therefore, if we just to play in a game is an honor. If we win, it'd be fantastic, and we're going to put it all out on the line. We're not saving anything for the NCAAs.
All right, the old Duke Blue Devils, as Mike Krzyzewski says. Congratulations, big win for you, and we'll let you get back in the locker room. We're going to come right back. We've got more to come after this as Duke wins by 21. This word now from Budweiser.
The Duke Blue Devils move on to the championship game now in the ACC tournament. The NCNB players of the game, Rodney Monroe for NC State and Bobby Hurley for the Blue Devils of Duke.
Just a tremendous effort by Bobby Hurley. 16 points, couple of 3-pointers, 3 big free throws when North Carolina State was trying to mount a run at the end of the ball game.
All right, so once again, Duke wins by 21 and now moves on to play the winner of the Virginia-North Carolina game. Now a word from our good friends at Budweiser. Virginia and North Carolina on the court, that game coming up. Let's take a look at the final statistics as Duke wins by 21. They shot the lights out here this afternoon.
They got some great opportunities executing in their offense. That's the best shooting percentage they've ever had in the ACC tournament. North Carolina State, which was shooting 55% at halftime, ends the game with about 34% overall. Duke again doing a fine job from the free throw line. The turnovers really hurt North Carolina State, and Duke really doing a good job on the boards as well.
Duke brought the NC State crowd to silence this afternoon. Coming up, Brad Nessler, Len Elmore sitting ready to take our seats. It's Virginia and North Carolina coming up. The 6th seed against number 2. For Dan Bonner, I'm Tim Brandt. So long, everybody.
Hurley has made from his near fatal automobile accident of 12 days ago. Now, Hurley has numerous injuries and a lot of rehabilitation to go through before he can return to basketball, but Bobby says right now he's not even thinking about basketball.
I'm real happy and I feel real good, and it's something that keeps me going, that my doctors are telling me that down the road I will be able to play, but right now basketball is kind of in the far part of my mind.
By the way, Hurley's family yesterday distributed sneakers, T-shirts, and caps to about 50 children at the UC Davis Medical Center outside Sacramento. It was an early Christmas for those youngsters and an early Christmas, too, for the Hurleys, now that Bobby is getting better. College basketball last night, 3rd-ranked Duke runs its record to 6-0 with its 2nd straight road win over a Big Ten team at Iowa. Cherokee Parks continues his good play. 18 points with the Jamburger. Tony Lang on the boards. He has 17. Duke holds off the Hawkeyes 79-76. Meanwhile, in
Valentine tonight, it's already a Merry Christmas for the Wolfpack, huh?
Les Robinson, I'm sure, is very happy. Probably had a nice plane ride back, Mimi. We're in Iowa City, where they had to hold off a late charge from the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Blue Devils started strong. Grant Hill for 3.